All right, please be joined this time by the new head coach at Central Carroll, Coach Brown. Coach, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, man. It's a pleasure, man. I appreciate everything you do for the coaching community, man. I really, mean that, and it's an honor.
Yeah, Coach, I was a fan of you guys last year at Paulding County. I thought, and I'm not just saying this, as you know, I recognized you because I thought it was one of the better jobs in that classification of maximizing what you had and getting the most out of your team. So,
I
um,
appreciate it.
yeah, now you got a new challenge. Where you from? You know, you're home, right?
Yeah, man. And then coming back home, it's always a little bit more passion that goes into it. A little bit more urgency, a little bit more want to. Not to say there wasn't all those things where I was at, but home is different. So
Absolutely.
excited, man.
Let's talk some DB play, Coach. I'll get out of the way.
All right, man. First, I guess let me do this. It is. Let's see here. Okay, hopefully this is good as far as being able to see it.
Yeah,
So,
we're good, Coach.
okay, perfect. Well, first off, man, we run a stack. We ran a stack last year. Well, really the last 3 years at PC, uh, since I've been there anyway, and we do it for multiple reasons, and this is not necessarily going to be something where we talk about why we do and why we run the stack and this, that, and the third. It's just more so how some of the things that we coach our DBs up on, and some of the important things that we talk about on a daily basis with them. Day one spring install stuff, and then just some simple things, that we look at when developing these kids on the back end. And then, when I say DB, I mean our two corners, our free safety mainly, but also our dogs. And so we do stuff in and out of it. We're pretty multiple. We get in and out of our 40 package. We get in a nickel where we're 3-4, and we sub personnel, all that stuff. But our home base is a stack. I wanted to leave my number there. So anybody that wants to text me, man, call me, feel free, man. My door is always open, man. I'm always willing to talk ball. So uh, before I go into that, one of the things that I think is important is that every program identifies what their core values are. We talk about this all the time. Our kids probably get tired of hearing us talk about it. We challenge them in all three of these every day. We make sure our kids understand what all of these mean. And at the end of the day, we want our kids to leave after 4 years with us, um, knowing why these core values are important. And hopefully it can, they'll carry on with them throughout their life. And we identify them. So we talk about toughness, unbreakable mentality. What does it take to break you? And in life, just teaching them that you gotta be strong, mentally and physically, more so mentally. Discipline, we would define that as do what's required, no excuses, period. We always talk about there being a battle between you and you every day. And, we challenge them in their discipline, whether it's technique, scheme, whether it's in the classroom, community, discipline in the building, how they carry themselves, what they wear. We we try to teach them that, because we feel like a lot of times we may be the last level of defense for some of them, with that. And then the last one is family. We over me brotherhood. We talk about how we're going to love and respect each other, point blank, period. That's a non-negotiable. And so I just wanted to share that, because that's kind of what we're based around. Everything is kind of held up by these core values. Okay, so talking about DBs, so I coach the DBs. I always coach a position. That's kind of where I started, and that's kind of where I'm gonna stay as far as even in this role I am now. We again, I think that position and these guys, you have the ability to win and lose games off one mistake on the back end. So we try to challenge them and train them up and start them early. But some of the things I just feel like you got to work daily, and that we work daily in our individual drills. Whether it's our pod work, combo work, teamwork, but mainly in our individuals, that we're going to work zone footwork, man footwork, tackling, obviously in space, and then an in and out of phase drill of some sort. And then we really spend a lot of time working eyes and ball drills. And the reason I got those two started is because we try to incorporate those last two in everything that we do when we work with our DBs. Everything, and we try to simulate, game flow and simulate what it's going to look like for them on the field on Friday night. And so I would say that, as many drills as you can incorporate, making sure they have disciplined eyes and good eye priority, and then just flipping the ball out there, whether you're throwing it, rolling it, for them to scoop and score, whether you're, punching it out, swiping it out, you name it, we try to include that. But we work these daily. Like when I build my plan for my group on a daily basis, I literally go through and I check off each and every one of these to make sure we're hitting these on a daily basis. And so I think you got to work that stuff. Communication is big. Obviously, for us on the back end, I tell the kids that, that's our lifeline. Us communicating is our lifeline. You can't be silent and play back here with us just because of what we do. We do a lot of moving around. We do a lot of disguising, but we also, just from a making sure you know where your help is standpoint, we want to communicate, and we talk about there's 3 modes of communication as a DB. And I tell them eyes, hands, mouth. I want to see them communicate with their eyes by looking at each other. I want to see them communicate with their hands, whether it's giving the signals, pointing out, different formations and sets, talking about different looks and alignments, or just flat out giving the signal to each other. And then lastly, mouth, we want to hear them talk to each other. And it should echo and bounce from one sideline to the next. That's just something, again, none of this is groundbreaking, but it's stuff that is important, but will get left. I've been there as a coach where you don't always hold your kids accountable to these things because you get so wrapped up in assignment and alignment, which obviously those are big pillars in defensive play anyway. But for us on the back end, the 3 modes of communication, eyes, hands, and mouth, and I'll make the kids give this back to me. How do we communicate? Eyes, hands, mouth. They know that, and we work that and instill that in them, and we hold them accountable to it. I'll have a coach that will chart it in practice where they, certain plays where we didn't communicate, in one of these 3 modes, or maybe we did and it was lazily, whatever. We try to hold them accountable because, again, this can't have any busted plays or the other band is playing. And so, and a lot of your busted plays come from that. And we had some. And so, again, this is what we feel like is very important. What we do in our defense, like I said, we're very multiple. So we base out of cover 3, and we got about 4 variations of cover 3, different ways that we spin the coverage and roll the coverage, and who's the number dropper, who's the hash dropper, who's the hole dropper, who's the third, and who's the deep middle. We do different things where we try to make it all look the same best we can. But we run a lot of cover 3. And I know in today's world, a lot of people try to stay away from that, especially in the RPO world. And we have answers to that, of course, but we kind of base and start there. And then we run a lot of cover 2 as well. And we run a couple of different variations of it, where it's just old school, we're going to get hands on and funnel everything up the rail. We're going to kind of sit and catch it. And what most people call it 2 read, we play that some. We play a rover, cover 2 rover, where that's basically a Tampa 2, excuse me, a Tampa 2 variation. And we drop different people in the middle hole. It's not always the same person. And so we do some things with that. And then the other one is cover 1. The reason those 2 coverages are in red is because that's probably what we run the most. Ton of cover 3 and ton of cover 1. And it's not always a pressure cover 1. And we'll get to some clips in a minute where kind of what we teach and kind of how we adjust to certain formations. 2 different variations of cover 0, which is usually a pressure call for us. And we say 2 different versions. You're thinking how you run the second version of cover 0. Well, it's all about who we want to send, and so what type of rules we have with that cover 0 dictates, like I said, who we're sending, and where we're sending them from, and then the rules that marry up to each one. And then in nickel, we play a little bit of 2-man. We play all of these coverages out of nickel as well, which changes some of the rules, but we play some 2-man as well, and it's pretty basic. But we try to be as multiple as we can, and we try to disguise and show a shell and roll. Although last year we went to more of a 1-high type shell, but again, we have trips checks that I don't have on this list here that we get into. We won't carry a ton of trips checks into a game. We'll usually carry 1 or 2 that we like. But a lot of times we'll just marry to the call and we'll run these. So this is super important. And when we meet with our kids, and we, like right now, we're doing positional meetings in the mornings with our guys. This here is where one of the first things that we talk about on the back end, because all of our coverages are predicated on it. And here's what it means. So the rail, we identify the rail as 2 yards inside or outside the hash. That's the rail for us. We call it the rail. And we're either trying to flush everything up the rail or we're trying to keep everything out the rail. Every coverage we got is predicated on that. And then on top of that, we want to try to dictate to the offense and force them to throw the ball deep and outside the numbers. That's just the bottom line. These 2 concepts, we teach our kids to understand where the rail is in relation to where they are, and then where do we want the ball thrown. And so as I kind of go through some of this stuff, you'll kind of see, and we've kind of done a little bit of both. It really depends on what type of kid you have, as far as, do we reroute or do we spot drop? I've been a big reroute guy. In terms of, throwing off time and using your man hand, staying square and trying to get them off the rail and this, that, and third. But it's such a hard concept to teach. And you will see, even in some of these clips I'm going to show you today, we always didn't do a great job, but we always hammer that. And so we probably more so this year will go to more of a landmark drop type deal. Still rerouting, of course, but we're going to kind of predicate landmark dropping. But this is kind of where it all starts for us right here, this slide right here. So now we'll get into some clips. So right here, right now we're in our base defense. Okay, we base out of a 505 front with stack backers. We don't necessarily break the stack a ton, but we will, depending on what we get. And then anytime we get a 3x1 set, so this is one of our day one, how we're going to align the 3x1, 10 personnel. We're going to spin our dog. Okay, so these 2 guys right here, that's the field side dog, boundary dog, and we don't necessarily play a field and boundary. We just play a left and right. We teach a spin technique, and what a spin technique is, he's essentially a free player, and his read is the quarterback. And so we're playing cover 3 here. I mean, just good old cover 3. We're going to try to reroute right here. All right, this guy is a 2 dropper, which in this case he's really a hash dropper. This guy would be a numbers dropper. All right, this guy's a middle hole dropper. We got deep middle, deep third, and this is kind of where we start. I'll just kind of go left to right here. Corners reads are 2 to the quarterback. The dogs reads are the in man line of scrimmage. Free safety, his read is the Q. The dog's read is the Q. Now, a couple things happen here with the dog. If we get run game right now, we get low hands, all right, and we get a mesh, all right, he's just going to settle his feet, and he's going to look to insert in the run game if the quarterback has empty hands. If it's pass right now, okay, he's going to drop off the quarterback's eyes. If he looks over here to the boundary for quick game, he's going to come out of the roof and be extra, okay? If he pops up, okay, and he looks to elbows high and he's looking to throw that fade ball, then he's going to be help over the top. If he looks, so they run all verts and drag 3 across, and he's going to look to poach. And so his eyes should be on the quarterback. He's looking this way. He's looking to see if 3 was coming across. All right. Well, obviously they ran a little scat route combo. All right. So this should have been the Mike Backer's drop, because he's the 3 dropper. Okay. He's really the middle hole, but he's the 3 dropper. All right. And we want to be given an in call. Our dog here is a little tight. He's a little tight. He should be at about 5 yards, and he's a little high. But you can see we're trying to really get a reroute on that number 2 vertical. All right. But once he takes himself in, we just deliver him inside. This year, we'll probably go to more so we won't focus so much on reroute, and we'll drop to the hash and match routes underneath. But again, it's just basic day one stuff here. Okay, as far as alignment, as far as responsibilities, reads, keys, that corner to the boundary over there. Anytime we spin our dog, we're going to press our corner. And he's pretty much playing like man-to-man, expecting help over the top if we get a fade ball. That back out is the backer's responsibility. That back out is the backer's responsibility. And we do that with the corner because we want to take away those easy access throws. Because I mean, again, that's especially in high school football, that's where the ball is going to go in most cases because they're going to put their stud over there. But again, just basic stuff there. Here, okay, so same deal. We're playing our base coverage, all right, what we put in on day one. And so now you're getting a 2x1 set with a sniffer. Okay. Anytime we get 2x1, we don't spin. Okay. The only time we spin is to true 3x1. So here we screw both of our dogs down, and both of them are reading the end man. Okay. Reads don't necessarily change anything. And now we want to take away, once again, we want to take away the easy access throws. We will play our corner either inside or out, depending on where he is compared to the numbers. And then I tell the dog to the open side, he wants to get in the slant window. And again, he's just hot feet until he knows it's run or pass. He's probably a little tight here. He can probably back up a little bit, talking about this dog right here. To the 2 receiver side, we want to be rail side of number 2. Okay, so remember we talked about the rail being 2 yards in or outside the hash. And so right now he's lined up outside the rail, so we want to be inside leverage. Okay, inside leverage, rail side of number 2. Okay, to take away, once again, that easy access throw. But our rule tells us this, and this is big. We tell them you should never be able to slap hands with another guy on your team, or you're too close. And so depending on his split, this kid could be a yard outside the hash, okay, still technically outside the rail, and he's going to want to, still be inside, but he's too close, so he'd get outside. And so that's why I say we try not to be too nitpicky with the rail rules, just because it just a lot of times depends on what type of set you get and the spacing of that set. And so we kind of teach them you should never be able to high five a teammate in your initial alignment. So here we just get a somewhat of a flood concept. Right clicking, sorry. You can look right here. When 2 took himself out, he don't have to worry about reroute no more. Now he really needs to match 1 or match 2 and play through 1. Corner should be given an in call, and we should be playing over the top of the wheel route. I don't like him 180 turning like that. We teach pedal and shuffle with our DBs. It really depends on, well, let me not say DBs, with our corners. It really depends on that kid's ability. 2 kids we had this year, one was really comfortable in a shuffle. One was really comfortable in a pedal. I think, some guys, that used to be the old great debate. Do you teach a shuffle or a pedal? My philosophy is you teach both, and you let your kids find what's comfortable for them. And so at the end of the day, you want them doing their job and doing it at a high level, but you don't want to have a cookie cutter process with that. So we teach both. If you look at the free safety here, his alignment rules are to split the ones. All right. He's reading the cue. All right. And then his job is to cut that ball in half. All right. So if we get a post, or first off, we teach them they got to identify their seam threats. Well, right now, his seam threat is number 2. As soon as number 2 goes away there, he's got to get his eyes on his next seam threat. Okay. Which ends up being the number 1 on the post here. And so that's where his eyes are. And we want them to keep their belt buckle square And then, you know, that's something that we work a ton with our free safeties is learning how to cut the ball off. Again, everybody's drop is not perfect here, and I won't get into the backers, but from a DB perspective and our base look, this is kind of how the routes are distributed right here. Down here at the bottom, again, he's pretty much got that receiver man-to-man there with inside help from the dog. I think we may have been sending our dog here, which is not a great stunt. But we're pretty much playing him man-to-man on the backside. Okay, so spin tech, we talked about it, right? 3x1, playing a spin tech. This corner right here should press, okay? Because if you look up right now, whether we're screen, especially with the back to the weak side, to the boundary, you're going to leave yourself susceptible to screen game, you know, now routes, and we don't want to give that up. So we should be pressed here. But I think it was 3rd and long here, if I'm not mistaken. But typically we want to be pressed. This dog is spun back, still reading the cue. Okay, so we'll look at this dog here. All right, Q looks backside. His eyes should go right here. Q looks backside. His eyes should go immediately to 3 or to anybody coming across. If 3's not coming, he progresses to the next guy. And so he don't have any threats. So he's really just looking for work at that point. To the front side, again, the dog is going to be line up on the rail side. Okay, so number 2 is on the rail. So we always, if he's on the rail, we'll line up inside. We'll take away the inside throws, take away the middle of the field, protect the rail. And again, he reads pass. His job is to reroute. And then after that point, he's to look up one and just match. He's really a numbers dropper at that point. Corner up top is just playing. Again, he's just reading 2 to quarterback, staying over the top. So again, nothing revolutionary, but this is kind of how we start day 1. Okay, so if we get a stacked alignment, okay, this is where you get into where. So we obviously, when we play the stack, teams try to do this to us because they want to dictate the box. All right, but if you don't adjust to the stack the way you're supposed to, especially if they have guys out there on the perimeter that can make plays and take advantage of one-on-one situations, I think you'll be in trouble. So from what we do and what we teach is we try to get 3/2. We were not necessarily 3/2 here. We had a check and we wanted to be 1 high, but we start off teaching 3/2, and then same thing to the boundary, 3/2, and we play really like a combo coverage. And again, you're gonna get a 6-man box guaranteed, and we feel like we got to be able to handle that, especially if they have guys out on the perimeter that's dynamic. If you look at this dog down here, he should have been a numbers dropper. Okay, he should have been a numbers dropper. He takes about 2 steps too far back, and he needs to be getting to the numbers to match this route here. And at the very worst, you know, this should be a catch and tackle. You know, we tell our kids, if teams want to take a notion to throw from the opposite hash outside the numbers to the field, we can live with that all day. But we feel like we're going to make just as many plays as they are if they continue to do that. But you can see right here, if this kid here takes a better drop initially, then he's going to be in good shape. The corner here, stand over the top. So like right here, we're just playing cover 3 to this particular look. Our day 1 install to this is to have a check where we're playing more so of a 2-read type situation. And we're matching numbers. Stack alignment versus a 2x1, 2x2 slot formation. Some people call it Dallas, you know, whatever you want to call this formation, where they got 2x2 with a tight end. We're going to screw our dogs down, and we're going to play our corners inside leverage. Okay. And anytime our dogs screw down, they become pretty much a landmark dropper. And so his drop, okay, speaking of this kid right here, his drop is going to be, he's a numbers dropper, okay, and he's looking up 1. And we teach him to take a snapshot of 1. And what that is they're just going to pop their eyes to one and then get to their drop. We never want a kid dropping and just staring at the quarterback, but we never want a kid turn his back to the quarterback either. So boom, snapshot, and then get in the slant window. You can see he pulled up a little early. He needs to keep expanding here, okay? Because the corner, his job is to, I mean, he's playing them pretty much man, but his job is to stay over the top. If you look to the short side, all right, we get a reroute, and then we again, we're just a simple numbers dropper, looking to cut him off. We try to spend a lot of time teaching our kids how to stay square. I think if you can do that and get your kids to learn that they don't never need to turn their belt to the sideline, in most cases, they don't need to turn their belt to the sideline. I think, and obviously teach good leverage. I think you'll have an opportunity to be really good. Free safety is way too deep here. We should be at 12 yards, all right, and he should be scooching, all right, and his drop should be based off what threats he gets. Again, we talked about it. His initial thing, he's reading the quarterback. If we get past, he's got to locate his seam threats. Right now, his seam threats is the tight end and the slot receiver to the top. Well, he don't have anybody pushing super vertical right now, so he's covering Casper right there. He's way too deep. Way too deep. But again, just base alignment, base rules in the secondary versus two by two. If we get a loose set, okay, all right, which we identify loose as is 2 by 2, but these guys could be wings, slots, whatever you want to call them, up backs, whatever. But if they can reach and touch the tackle and they're tight, okay, we identify them as backs really in our defense. And so if we get loose, then again, we're going to screw our dogs down. All right. And we teach them they need to get as tight as they can without getting reached. Okay. That's their alignment rule. When we have a tight end, or if we have if they have a number 2 receiver that's tight to the core of the formation, they want to get as tight as they can without being reached. Okay. And then if they get a pass key, all right, then all they're doing, again, they're numbers droppers. Okay, this is pretty basic. Our corners play a soft, they playing a soft alignment, and they're playing inside leverage, knowing they got help. This guy out here should be a little bit wider and probably step back because we want to be able to get in that slant window. If these guys push vertical, then our backers will reroute and take care of them, and our safety, again, is reading the quarterback. Again, boom. So this is what we call a piano step by this dog down here at the bottom. Inside foot up, step and replace, step and replace. You get a pass key, spot drop to the numbers. Now, I would have liked to seen him take a snapshot of one, but sometimes kids are going to do things that you didn't necessarily coach them to do, but they're going to make a play. That happens to all of us. I think you obviously don't want to come down hard on the kid, and you want to pump him up, make him feel really good about making a play, but then you want to make sure he understands, what he wants to do in most cases in that situation. Again, loose sets are not a big deal for us. A lot of people give us tight ends. Tight ends are not a big deal for us because of how we teach our reads with our backers. We don't necessarily worry about teams adding extra gaps. We will make over checks if they give us a 4-man surface. But, we feel like with our dogs, we can adjust to all that. And then we have a couple of things we do where we roll some coverages as well that we won't necessarily get into tonight. But again, we don't worry about teams trying to create extra gaps. Our dogs got to make plays. They got to be able to fit in the run game. And they got to be able to make plays in the passing game. Here, so another loose set right here. Okay, let me move this. You have another loose set. Okay, again, same alignment. Our guys are going to be tight as they can without being reached, and we're just playing one high. All right, we want our corners to be inside leverage. I put this clip on here because this kind of illustrates what we talked about with our shuffle technique. I do think he's a little high in his stance, okay? But, again, we're going to clear our cleats, All right, shuffle, shuffle with good zone eyes on the cue, 2 to the cue. Okay, 2 to the cue. All right, shuffle, shuffle. And then once we know we don't have another threat in our third, we teach our guys to stack. And what I tell them is this: if you're a corner and you're in a shuffle technique and you're in a half turn and you're running, you should be able to see this guy. If you're the left, if you're our right corner, you should be, from the defensive perspective, if you're our right corner, you should be able to see him with your right eye. You know, when we were in 6A, we play a lot of really good quarterbacks, and you lose sight of that guy, and they're going to back shoulder you to death. I also saw a lot of really good receivers. And so what I teach them is they got to be able to see him with their right eye. Down here, all right, where he's man turning, although he should not be man turning, he ends up flipping his hips and getting back over the top. And I'll talk about something with that here in a second. But again, if you look over here to the boundary, stack them, get a body on them, play high. I mean, that's the key element to playing the fade ball. And we practice this stuff a lot. If you go back to our key things that we work every day, we're going to work in and out of phase. Especially your corners, they have to work in and out of phase drills every day. Because in high school ball, everybody has the fade ball in the package. I don't care who you are. And so your kids better be able to defend it. And so we do a lot of stuff where we'll put them in a deficit. You know, we'll put them in a good situation. We'll get creative and do some things with them where they got to overlap with two receivers and still play the outside fade. But this was a good job by this kid of playing the shuffle technique and then stacking them, seeing him with his right eye, stacking them and playing high and making a play. Now, back down here at the bottom. And so he's man turning, all right, with two so tight to the core. I guess he didn't feel the need to see two to the quarterback. He really shouldn't have man turned. But I do want to talk about man turning and what we spend a lot of time on with the DBs is we talk about the move area. And what I mean by that is we talk about 13 yards is the move area. And so, you know, he's pedaling, all right? He's got eyes on his inside hip. And, you know, we don't want to open the gate too soon. That's a little bit too soon. It's too much cushion, all right? But once he clears 13 yards, all right, he's still pushing vertical. We're going to flip our hips, and we're going to find the ball, and we're going to look to stack him. And we want to, because he flipped a little too early, he created some cushion there that didn't need to be there because we want to get a body on him. We want to pin a hip to him. But that's kind of the idea behind that move area. You know, 13 yards. Listen, after 13 yards, we feel like in high school, most routes are going to declare themselves. Can they run a 15-yard dig? Can they run a 15-yard comeback? Sure, they can. That's why we got to pin the hip and we got to flip and find quickly, you know, and do what we call look and lean. But I just kind of wanted to hit on that. Didn't even plan to talk about that, but that's something that I think is important that you need to work as well. So when we play cover one, all right, one of the other covers that we play a lot of is cover one. And when we do that and we get teams that want to play some 20 personnel, we actually like cover one to 20 personnel. We don't always do it, but we do run it. We teach what we call a fox technique. And so all it is, and I think everybody probably does a variation of it, where you're going to take your free, or you're going to take two of your safeties, okay, and you're going to fox this sniffer, okay? And if he crosses the ball, you know, then obviously we're going to rock our safeties. If he stays on one side of the ball, whether it's run or pass, if this guy does not cross the ball, okay, again, run or pass, then the guy to his side is going to come out of the roof and he's going to take him. All right. If it's run, then he's going to be extra and insert in the run game and be an extra hat. If it's pass, he's got a man-to-man. And then the other guy, all right, if he does not come across the ball, that's the key. He's got to come across the ball. If he does not come across the ball, all right, then he's a deep middle dropper. Okay, that's his responsibility. And we just feel like it keeps us protected versus teams that want to run split zone and they want to run some type of pass concept off of split zone action. It keeps kids from having to go across the trash and try to, stay married up to a guy. It's just easy, very easy, inexpensive to teach. The kids like doing it. We tell them we want them to get on the same level when they do that. But we screwed this kid down just because of a tendency they had to want to run to that sniffer side. And you'll look at it and say, well, coach, you don't have an edge. You got to remember, all right, he's going to be our edge setter, our B backer, all right, and he's going to be the outside vice of the ball. Right now with the back to him, he's really a quarterback player, but he's got to be the outside vice of the ball, and he's got to get downhill and be that C-gap fitter in our base stuff. We will screw this kid down some, but when we're teaching that Fox technique, we want him back. We want him back. If you look at the other side, okay, one of the key elements that we teach, and again, nothing revolutionary, just things that we talk a lot about, we want our kids to be so locked in on, is when we combo, some people call it banjo, some people call it combo, some people call it in and out, whatever your terms are. Basically, when you're playing man-to-man and we get tight splits, and you're going to have both of these guys combo these guys or read the inside guy, then we want to be on the same level. If we do not, and we marry it, and there is no combo, then we spend a lot of time talking to our kids about getting on different levels. And when we do that, somebody's got to be pressed, somebody's got to be back. Sometimes it may not be press. Sometimes it may be in a catch alignment, and one guy may be back a little further, just deeper than that guy. The guy that's low is the underneath guy. He must go underneath. All right. The guy that's high must go over the top. All right. Right here, the routes were kind of at that 5-yard mark where we try to switch routes off. All right. But if you look here, this kid should have went over the top. Okay. In that corner, don't need to open the gate. Okay. He needs to stay square as long as possible, cut this route off and stay attached and stay with him. And then this kid will go over the top. Okay. Kind of a funky route combo. You get an out and up with a slant. And so it was one of those routes that kind of played with the rules a little bit. But that's kind of how we teach it. Again, I like to put clips on here where you show where kids should have did it a different way, just because that's more realistic. When we're talking about, again, we coaching high school kids, man. So I know what everybody deals with. You coach one thing from day one, but kids will continue to make the same mistakes. You got to find ways to get them better. If you look at our free safety right here, he should have not spun down. Okay, again, he's the deep middle player because that sniffer stayed on this side of the ball. This is an easy read. So he should be looking to play deep middle and take away the post by number one, all right, or possibly the post by number one out here if it gets to that point. And so, again, he's robbing the middle. So you can see where we were all types of wrong right here in this particular situation. But once again, that's going to happen when you teach your kids how to play in and out of phase and you work it every day. You'll be able to deter a lot of you'll be able to create a lot of incompletions, and that's what we spend a lot of time on. It's talking about in and out of phase. It's a good job of staying through the pocket right there. And not looking back at the quarterback. Here, okay, so we'll talk real quick about our sprint out rules. If we get it, a team, and it really don't have to be a loose set. It could be any set, really. Don't really matter. Our sprint out rules are pretty simple, but you got to work it. You got to hammer it. So we'll start with our dog. Again, we get a tight set here. He wants to be as tight as he can without being reached. All right. And then as soon as he reads pass right here, he's really a numbers dropper. Okay. But then when we get sprint out action, obviously we're going to take our front side B backer and he's going to trigger on the quarterback. This kid is supposed to be a hash dropper. Okay. He ends up inserting. Okay. So he was wrong here. All right. He's supposed to be a hash dropper. What we tell our kids when we get sprint out, all right, it turns into a match concept. And our numbers dropper wants to work flat. We don't want to keep getting depth. All right. As soon as we recognize this sprint out, All right, whether that's super, super early in the down or halfway through the down, don't matter. When we recognize that this sprint out pass, he's got to get flat to cut that route off. And we don't want to, there's no cover zone on the 5. We don't want to jump routes underneath 5, but we do want to get flat to try to cut that route off, because they're cutting the field in half essentially. Our free safety is going to come out of the roof, and he's going to jump any deep dragger, all right, that we may get. And then our corner has to understand that he is the high player. Anything out the back door late, okay, if they try to do a throwback or anything like that, then we tell our dog he has to take care of that and run with it. All right, and then our corner still just looking for work, playing deep third. And we must trigger on the quarterback. Okay, our B backer must trigger as soon as he reads sprint out. As soon as we want to try to hem it up. So you can see right here where our Mike backer did not get to the hash. All right, he's triggering, trying to do somebody else's job. He's supposed to be a hash dropper. All right, but that's our sprint out rules. We spend a lot of time on. The guy that you got to spend a lot of time coaching up is this guy. Okay, the dog, and teaching them how to get flatter versus sprint out instead of getting deep. And that's just kind of how we do it. Here's an example of us playing a zero, cover zero, and us comboing. Well, here we're not necessarily comboing, but back to what we talked about earlier. If you're going to combo 2 of these guys, then those 2 guys that are comboing have to be on the same level, and the guy that's not, all right, has to be essentially pressed down here, but definitely on a different level. Okay. If there is no combo from either of them, then all 3 of them have to be on a different level so we don't get rubbed. That's a big deal for us now. And so now this kid here knows he's an over-the-top guy. This kid here knows he's an underneath guy. All right. This kid here is kind of out of the equation, but he knows he's got to stay glued, and he's got to play that slant hard because he's tighter than the 2 guy. Okay, so if these 2 guys were to switch, if he ran out and he ran under, he just stays over the top. He stays glued underneath. And that's just how we teach it from day one. Another thing we talk a lot about, especially down here in the red area, is keeping your belt buckle square. All right, square is good. Okay, and that's not always tough. You know, I cut the games on Sundays sometimes, and I see those guys open the gate too. It makes me feel a little bit better about myself when I see them do it. But you got to hammer it. You know, you have to hammer it. And if you look here, it's a good job by this kid not giving too much ground. And because he stayed square, simply square, and he stabbed at the top of the route, you're going to be in a good position to play routes. That's just the bottom line. And so, you know, that's something that as a DB coach, I think you need to spend a lot of time on, is working your red area man-to-man, because it is a little bit different than it is in the field. I think the next clip, we got a catch technique. So here, here's an example. So we're playing cover 1. All right, we're getting 2x2 here. All right, and we're 1 high structure in this particular look. And so we're playing catch with both of our corners here. It's 4th and 3. All right. We're typically going to play catch. All right. Flat out. We're going to play catch. If we get a 4th and short situation, we're going to try to force you to take a high percentage throw in these situations. What we teach in catch technique is you have to clear your cleats. All right. And so basically you just reload your base. You just basically clear your cleats, take 2 steps outside, 1, 2. All right. That's going to keep you square. We spend a lot of time talking about keeping your belt square and then stab at the top of the route. You know, there is no pedal. They can't just sit there and be flat-footed, though. Okay, if they're flat-footed, they're going to be dead. And this is something that you got to practice. All right, and you got to. We force them to play this technique in certain times in practice so we can get work at it. But if you watch this kid up top right here, he's going to clear his cleats. All right, boom, boom, clear the cleats. Keep your belt square, all right? And then you got to do this 3rd piece, all right? Or you're going to be dead as well. Stab at the top of the route. You got to stab at the top of the route. Again, going back to it, all right? We want to be square. We want to have weight on the balls of our feet, shoulders nice and quiet, all right? Weight a little bit forward, All right, ready to move. Hips, good bend in the hips. Clear the cleats. Clear the cleats. Keep your belt square. All right, and then stab at the top of the route. You do those 3 things in your catch technique, you're typically gonna be okay. All right. If they try to blow by us on the fade, again, that's why it's so important to stab at the top of the route to try to throw the timing off and to give you time to be able to get back in fades. Okay. Again, our free safety, going back to what we talked about earlier, their job is to cut the ball in half. All right. If we get anything threatening the middle of the field. All right. So this is a good job. Kid down here at the bottom, same deal. All right. Clear the cleats, keep the belt line square, stab at the top of the route. Okay. And you can teach a 1-hand stab, 2-hand stab. That's up to you. We kind of taught both because, again, going back to how we teach pedal and shuffle, you want to give kids tools to put in their arsenal. And so, you don't want to have a cookie cutter process. Some kids may be more comfortable stabbing with 1, some may be more comfortable stabbing with 2. But again, that's how we teach it. And this is a skill that, again, you got to work it. You can't expect kids just to get good at it. You got to work the mess out of it. Okay, right here. So I don't have a ton of cover 2 on here, just because I didn't want to, go over the time, even though I know I'm probably over. We do play cover 2 now, and we play a couple variations of it. And we'll play it to multiple sets. And so when we play cover 2, our corners reads are they're reading 2 to the quarterback, just like they are in red when we're playing like just basically 2 read. And again, what we tell them when we're playing just like a catch cover 2 is we want to, if 2 is vertical, they're vertical. Okay. So right here, this corner up top, if you look at it, all right, 2 is vertical. So he's vertical. That way we can play, number 1, top down. We're not necessarily trying to funnel. We do want to influence an inside release to help this safety. All right. But we're not necessarily emphasizing a funnel here unless we were playing or a funnel tech, unless that was in the call. And then as soon as he sees a threat here, we tell him, you got to be a missile. All right. It should either be a pick or a big collision. Straight up. Okay, that's just the bottom line. Our dog here, his job is to reroute and play in what we call a box. His job is just be physical as all get out with the number 2 receiver and play in that box, all right, because he knows he's got corner help. Again, nothing revolutionary, basic stuff, but things that just kind of wanted to share what we teach in terms of the mindset in cover 2, more so than anything. Down here, this corner is pretty much manned up, and that dog is almost playing like a bracket technique on number 1 down here. The corner down here should be a little bit tighter and a little bit more aggressive with that guy at the line. You see here, stop sharing. That's all I got, man. I know a lot of what we talked about today. Again, nothing revolutionary, but what we try to do is, we try to give our kids a ton of tools, man. And because it's funny. I just had this conversation with my D coordinator today. We're not going to carry all these coverages in every game, but there's nothing worse than when you're trying to make adjustments and you have a good idea, but you don't do that.
Right.
And so, and that used to be called when I was playing country coaching. So we try not to do that. And so I say that to say, we try to have tools in the toolbox, different techniques, different things that we do with our coverages. And again, we don't get into all of them, but you guys are more than welcome, man, to call me, text me, whatever, come talk, chop it up, come down to Carrollton, man, and sit down with me, man, and we'll go through it all. But we try to be multiple, man.
Awesome. That was a great job, Coach. Appreciate it. I can see a little more about why you guys did such a good job this year, man. Keep it up. Best of luck to you out there at Central Carroll, man. If I can ever help you, let me know.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it for having me on. Appreciate it. See ya.